working on changing the color of the shells of my Alesis Crimson 2 drums, because I've gotten tired of the red, and also it doesn't go with the rest of the room. So I will show you the things that I have figured out along the way that you need to take into account if you want to do this. It's really easy to do, and there's just a couple of little things that I came across whenever I was doing the first couple, and I'll share those with you. So I'll start today just describing the stuff that I have been using to get these drum shells wrapped. The first thing that I got was a roll of wallpaper with a backing on it, and I'm not removing the backing to attach it to the drum shells. I'm just using some double stick tape to tape it down to the shell so that it's easily removable later on. And of course you need a tape measure, but I also used this sewing actual measuring tape to wrap around the shells to get, you know, the length of the wallpaper strip that I needed to cover it. And I've got a Sharpie paint pen, and I'll show you what I use that for a little later on. Obviously you need a drum key. We've got a utility knife, measuring tape, and also a long straight edge so that you can cut the strips out and have them be nice and even. So the first thing that you need to do, obviously, is remove the drum from the rack, and then we need to take this rim off here. And I've already, you know, loosened all of the lugs there. I'll just set that aside, and we need to move the head here, and then that'll give us access to this plastic part here. So you just take this off. Now you notice on this side it has a notch out, and so whenever you cut your strip of vinyl or wallpaper or whatever it is that you're using to cover the shells, you'll need to notch that out, and I'll show you that a little bit later. Also, another thing is, I noticed the first time that I tried to wrap it that a little bit of this red lip here on the bottom of the shell was showing after I put the drum back together. So I got a black paint pen, and I'm coloring those, and also underneath this little notch here, so that you can't see any red showing through once it's wrapped, because that's the whole point, is to get rid of that. And another thing that I noticed whenever I was doing this, that there's also this little red piece here that has to do with this knob. So you just pull the knob off and set that aside. Make sure you don't lose it. And then you can just lay this forward and bring it out. And so I'm also using the black paint pen to color the front and this circular area and the sides of this, just as much of it as is sort of forward facing, so that again you don't see any of that red showing through once you put your new color on the drum. So I'm just going to take this piece here and use this black paint pen to color all of the visible parts of it, so that when it's reassembled it looks like a nice solid black surface. There we go. I tried using a regular Sharpie on that, but it'll just wipe off, so, which is why I'm using this this paint pen, and it's an oil-based Sharpie paint pen, so it will stay once it's dried here. So I do this first so that by the time I'm ready to reassemble everything, this will be dry. Just make sure you don't miss any little spots, especially down here in this little curved area, because all of that stuff can be visible even if you think it's going to be tucked in there. So it's a little bit tedious, but it gives you a really much nicer end result. What I found, I experimented with a couple of things. I actually initially wrapped it in electrical tape, and that really didn't look too great. Although it did look better than I thought, and it worked better than I imagined it would. But so then you'll just leave that little piece there and let it dry until you're ready to reassemble. So the next step in this process is to use the paint pen to color, and you're going to have to do it in a couple of steps here, to paint this little lip here black. And you want to make sure you get it nice and solid, because this is something that will be visible a tiny bit once you apply your wrap to the shell. And I just went around here, and you have to sort of push the tip of the paint pen down a little bit so that it a little bit comes out to get right in that corner, because this is a rounded, sort of rounded tip. It's not pointy or anything. So to make sure it gets down in there. And I just put a piece of paper under it to keep it from making a mess, because it is paint after all. And I just go all the way around doing this. And if your paint pen starts to dry out a little bit, you can shake it and get it going again. And then once you do this lip here, you're going to want to do the front edge too. Some of it may have, gotten on there already when you were doing the lip, but you want to make sure the front part along here is well covered too. And another thing is you want to make a little bit of a border around this little cutout here, so that if there's any gaps in your vinyl or wallpaper, whatever your material is, that it won't show any of the red through there. So I need 2 hands for this next part, so I'll show you the end result here just in a second. So now I have colored with the black paint pen underneath this notched area, and then all around the face and the lip of this this shell here. So that you'll want to set to the side and let that dry while you're cutting your strip out as well. And that will be the next step. So I'm using the measuring tape here to find the length that I need to cut for my wallpaper, or if you're using vinyl or whatever you're using to cover your shell. And you want a little bit of overlap too, so that you can use the double stick tape to tape the end over another piece of the material, so that you don't have any show through of the original color of the shell. So I'm going to cut mine, and this, I wanted to mention that this is for the 10-inch floor tom on this. I'm going to cut this one at 33 inches, and that'll give me about 1.5 inches overlap. You probably honestly don't even need to do that much. 1 inch would be fine. But this is what I'm going to do for this one, just so it's a nice round number. So I've used a measuring tape to mark several spots. I don't know how easy that is to see. Several spots along the length of the material. And then I'm just going to line up a straight edge here, and then use a utility knife to cut the strip that I need. It's already cut to length, so I don't need to worry about that right now. That was the first thing I did, actually, was cut it to the length that I needed for the first drums that I did. So the 8-inch ones I cut at 26 inch in length, and so that'll be your rack toms and your kick drum. The 10-inch toms will be 33 inch of length piece that you'll need. And then the 12-inch snare I have yet to measure, so I'm going to be doing that one next. It's sitting right over here. So I will fill you in on that, and I'll also put the measurements in the description below. I'm cutting all of these strips to 1 5/8 inches wide, so that it'll cover the whole shell without sticking out on the top, because then whenever you put your head and the rim back on, it'll get squished in there, and then it'll mess it up. So now I'm just going to line my straight edge up with the marks that I made on the material. And they're a little bit harder to see because it's dark gray, but they are there. And then I'll use, and you want to use a fresh blade on this so that you can get through it in one cut. And there you have your piece of material that you're then going to wrap around your drum shell. So I've started wrapping this one, and I went ahead and put the double stick tape underneath. Started it a few inches to the left of this notch, so that once we get back around here, and you don't have to be super careful about it until you want to get to the end here. And then you want to make sure that it's seated down against this lip so that it'll stay in place good. And you want to sort of just pull it a little bit to make sure it's a nice tight wrap here. And you see I'm going right over that notched area, and I'll go back in a minute here and cut that part out. So I've got double stick tape obviously on the other side of this too. And then there you go. So the next part I'll do is I'll take this utility knife and I will work on notching this out just from the back side. Just cut a couple of lines here, and then I go from the top of the rounded part down, and I do that a couple of times so that I can just sort of pull out little pieces of it until I get all of it removed. So you can see here that I've got some little things, and then I'll go back and sort of fine tune that a little bit and make sure that it's all removed from that area. So now that I have this cut out, I'm going to use the paint marker to just color the white exposed edges where the material is cut, because that's the backing that you would really take off if you weren't doing it the way that I'm doing it. But I would like to be able to remove it and change it to a different color or texture later on if I decide I'm tired of this one at some point in the future. And so then none of that white is going to show, and that's going to look good. So the next step is I'm going to put this little plastic piece back that goes underneath the, I guess it's a volume knob on here. And I make sure it's turned all the way down for now so that I can line up the little dot on it with that position. It makes it easier to know exactly where it goes here. And then you just push that back on. And then once that's back on, we can then set the shell back down over it, and it goes just behind this tiny little lip of this knob here. And you'll see this, which we colored black, would still be red if we hadn't used the paint pen to make it black, and that just keeps it from being, you know, as obvious that there's something going on. It looks like it's meant to be like that. So then the last step is going to be to put the head and the rim back on and tighten everything down, and then that's it. So I'll show you the finished product. I've got one more to do after this. So this is the final product. I've gotten each of the drums wrapped and reassembled and put back on the rack. And I'm really pleased with how it came out. It gives it a little bit, I don't know, a little bit classier look, I think, than the red plastic stuff. So, yeah, I'm really happy with the end result, and now it matches my room, which also makes me happy. So in addition to wrapping the shells themselves, there's also on the Crimson 2, there is a red sort of stripe with a half moon at the top. And I went ahead and cut a piece and put on there too, just to cover up any of the red. I think that looks a lot better.